For decades, photographers have relied on Photoshop and Lightroom to make their art. The problem, though, is that Adobe are kinda evil. And more than just the usual corporate stuff, it really feels like lately Adobe doesn't respect us, the artists, who also happen to be their customers. I'm sure you've seen plenty of videos complaining about the absolute state that is the Adobe Creative Suite. But not a lot of those videos are offering any solutions, which is what I'm going to attempt to do today. By looking at the issues we do have with Adobe software and then basically doing the opposite of that, we can kind of construct our perfect photo editing software. So let's start with the cheekiest issue and then work our way up to the most horrible, nasty, disgusting. Lies. Not the fun ones, the questionably legal ones. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about if you've ever tried to cancel your Adobe plan. In case you missed it, when you sign up for, let's say, the photographer's plan at Adobe, it looks like this. Fair to assume that's the price? What you don't see, unless you go digging through pages and pages of small print, is that there's a cancellation fee. The cancellation fee is equal to the remainder of your 12-month billing cycle. And yeah, sure, there are ways to get around this. If you're resourceful with some Googling, you'll find them. And also, sure, you agreed to this in the terms of service, but I don't think it's reasonable to expect your customers to have to read hundreds of pages of stuff before any subscription, let alone hire a lawyer. Here's the thing though, it's not just me and the other whingy YouTube photographers complaining about this, it's affecting a lot of people. The FTC, who you may have heard of, are currently taking action against Adobe for misleading customers. I think it's fair to say that being upfront about costs and pricing is kind of business ethics 101, and luckily there is an easy solution for this, which goes hand in hand with... The other sneaky problem with Adobe software is the subscription model in the first place. Monthly payments kinda suck, we all know they do, but for some businesses it does make sense as a business model, especially with businesses that have high ongoing costs. I mean, think about the amount of servers that Netflix have to run. The trouble with Adobe's subscription though is that most of the customers, that's us, are not just consumers, we're also businesses. And millions of people around the world rely on Adobe software to feed their family. Now look, I know a lot of very successful photographers, but I don't know any photographers who have the resources to out-lawyer Adobe, which puts them in a position that they could very easily abuse power from. If they decide to double their prices, they kind of just can. And yeah, if they double their prices, they have to give you a week or two grace period to cancel, but if you're halfway through a month-long project, you can't. Bonus little evil deed. Did you know that Adobe were looking into whether or not they could sue customers that were using out-of-date versions of their software? Like, not even pirated versions, just older ones. There's a really easy solution to the first two problems. Get rid of the subscription model. Charge a fair one-time fee and put the customers in charge of the software they own. It creates security, it actually incentivizes more innovation from the developers. If they want us to buy the next edition, they have to improve it. And it's just one less bill every month. Listen, I know, I see you with your pirate hat on, but I think obtaining your photo editing software from the high seas is not a good idea. And no, I'm not inherently anti-piracy. The fact is, with a pirated copy, you can edit your photos, but you lose access to all of the cloud stuff. You lose access to the AI tools, the noise reduction, the automatic masking and selection. And look, we all have different opinions on AI, and we'll get to that, but if you don't have access to these tools, you're handicapping your performance in low light, you're slowing down your editing process, and in turn, you're giving every other photographer who you're competing with an advantage over you. So I think the solution, at least for now, isn't piracy. Speaking of piracy, it's quite important for businesses to have customers. That's kind of how this works. So it's funny that Adobe seem hell-bent on getting rid of all of theirs. Look, AI is here, and while I don't like how it's being used right now, it's not going anywhere. In my opinion, the best case scenario is a world where AI tools are optional and are there to assist the artists in doing their jobs better. And some of that has already happened. I mean, AI noise reduction is a massive game changer, especially for newer photographers who might not have the budget for big fast prime lenses and big fast sensors for low light performance. And there are some seriously good use cases for AI outside of that. Think about how much easier it could be to mask and select subjects. Think about dust removal for film scans, or even upscaling for printing. But the worst possible timeline is the one that Adobe seems to be aiming us for right now, which is replacing all of the artists with AI generated slop. And look, Adobe don't have the best track record when it comes to being ethical with AI. And to me, at least, they seem to be really focusing a lot of their AI efforts around tools that replace creatives, not assist them. I mean, have you seen those ads on YouTube where they like replace the bookshelf with a jungle? Who is that for? So what would we want from the perfect company here? Well, we wouldn't want them to ignore the potential upsides of AI because it's here now, but we wouldn't want them to be making stuff to replace us. We would want them to be focused on using AI in ways that can help photographers do what photographers want to do. We'd also quite like it if they minded their own business. So here's the big one, the latest thing that we're all angry about. Adobe changed their terms of service to basically say, whenever we want, for whatever reason, we can access all of your stuff. That included training for AI, and it's since been rolled back after a massive online pushback against Adobe. But do you really think they're not going to figure out just another sneakier way to do it? And worse, we're ignoring the bit where even before the whole AI thing, Adobe still had the right to go through your catalog and just look at stuff. And that's not just robots, that's people. NDAs and corporate work aside, do you really want some intern at Adobe being able to just look you up and see your entire Lightroom catalog? Not really, no. Privacy is so simple, yet so many companies just seem to turn into Darth Vader's evil system admin the second there's profit to be found. And in the data economy, there's a lot of profit to be found. So our perfect software needs to keep its nose clean and stay out of our business. But more than just not being evil, I think there's a much more important factor that goes into choosing a photo editing software. Does it help us to create the images we want? I mean, just think about how much time we've both spent learning about lenses and lights and camera bodies, and then we're just gonna take our images and always stick them through Lightroom just because that's what everyone else does? See, it turns out the perfect photo editing software does exist. And let me give you a few clues. For starters, here's the big one. It's a one-time payment. There's no subscription. And the one-time payment is cheaper than your first year of the photographer's plan through Adobe. So it's cheaper the first year, and the second year, it pays for itself. Hey, bonus, since I asked them really nicely, it's even cheaper because I got you a discount code. You're welcome. But what about AI? Okay, I hear you. They have better AI denoising and demosaicing tools than Adobe do. They've got AI sharpness and all sorts of stuff that just doesn't exist within Lightroom. And everything they're focusing on building with AI is an assistive tool, which is designed to help photographers to get the most out of their gear and get the results they want. None of it is going to replace you or me. They've also done all of their AI training on images that they have bought and paid the correct license for with permission. Not any of our data. They never access any user images, which means they tick the other boxes too. But aside from not being evil, which really should be the bare minimum for a software, the new DxO Photolab 8 is actually a really great creative suite. You can manage your catalog and do all the same sort of adjustments that you're used to, plus a whole bunch of other features like you can change the color space you're editing in. There's loads of really good masking controls now. The lens corrections are just really, really good. And if you like, you can use machine learning tools for things like noise reduction, sharpness, and dehazing. Photolab 8 also uses like really advanced, fancy raw image processor. So even before you've done any editing, the image that you get out of it from your camera is gonna look different than an unedited image from Lightroom, and in my opinion, better, because the data from the raw is being cooked up in a different kind of way. Aside from that, DxO have some really powerful tools like the Nik Collection plugins that Sebastian Salgado doesn't stop raving about, or FilmPack, which is like a really easy to use, really good looking film emulation plugin. FilmPack has this really fun little feature called Time Machine, where you can sort all of the film presets by era, by decade, and then when you're going through them, it'll show you some famous photos from that era on film so that you can kind of get inspiration as you find your look, and like it's pretty goofy, but I kind of like it. And yeah, there's a little bit of a learning curve coming over from Lightroom, but it's not because the software is hard to use, it's just because everything is kind of in a slightly different place to where you're used to it being. I honestly think it's the most intuitive editing software for beginners without artificially handicapping what you can do. So if you're still editing using the Photos app on your phone, you know who you are. It's time to get serious. Look, the honest truth is that Adobe Lightroom is good software. DxO Photolab 8 is also good software, and I think it's better, but you might not. Art is subjective and it's a tool for making art, so luckily that's what free trials are for. One thing we can definitely agree on though is that Adobe are a bit evil, so if you're looking to upgrade or maybe looking for a change, or maybe you're still using pirated software, I think Photolab might be the way to go. It's easier to use, it's more powerful, and even if you're completely convinced that you're going to stick with the software you're currently using, it's worth trying. After all, we love to use new lenses, new cameras, new film stocks to spark our creative juice machine, so why not try a different editing software? Or whatever, you can stick with the one from the company that charges a monthly subscription for a PDF reader. You do you, I guess. Stay hydrated and create art.